Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Deo. I like to make videos and talk about my photography experiences here on this channel and just talk about a bit of life in general and kind of just do stuff that I like to do on here. Thank you for stopping by if you're new. Yeah, I'm a camera-based photographer. Today, I wanted to talk about my experience with a film stock that I have had a bit of curiosity and I am very late to the party for. My experience with it was okay, but the results were definitely something more to be desired. So let's just get right into it. Today, the film that I'm talking about is Phoenix 200. So my experience with Phoenix 200, I had it in my fridge for the longest time. I got it for Christmas from my wife. She was asking what to get me. I said, look, I've been wanting to try out this new film called Phoenix. She got me a roll of 35mm and a roll of 120, which is really cool. Thought I'd do like a little comparison between the two, and the results definitely were lackluster in my opinion. Definitely not really something that I vibed with. But before we get there, I'm just going to talk about my experience with shooting it. It's a 200 speed film, pretty easy for me to understand as I shoot a whole bunch of Kodak Gold. That is my absolute favorite film stock. As of the past like year or two, Kodak Gold, absolutely goated. So yeah, Phoenix 200 really intrigued me. I wanted to try something new. Picked it up, shoved it into my Olympus AF10 while I was out at Bateman's Bay, which is another very close to Canberra coastal town that most people here will pretty much flock to any chance they get. I took the camera out and was shooting some Phoenix, kind of acting and treating it as if it was like Kodak Gold. 200 speed, easy for me to understand, even less for me to understand considering it was in a point and shoot, fully automatic camera. But however, the results were quite lackluster once I got them back. So after shooting the roll of film out in Bateman's Bay, I got my results back, and the first thing I noticed with these pictures was they sort of looked off. Granted, this is the very first iteration for color film from Harman, or who used to be called Ilford. This is their first iteration, and there is Phoenix 2 out there now, which is something that I will be trying out on this channel as well. I had to cut them a bit of slack. However, the colors from these pictures really just did not bode well with my style and my vision of photography. The first thing that I noticed when looking at these images closer was the contrast. So these contrasty images from Phoenix were just kind of jarring in my opinion. They don't really fit anywhere within my body of work that I personally enjoy and personally like to shoot a lot of. So the contrast was very jarring and just didn't really fit well. The colors themselves didn't really render to what I believe was what the scene was. So this photo example of my son on the beach, this was taken at like midday. Yet all the colors within this image here just don't seem to be midday colors. Other images in the roll, they all seem kind of otherworldly, as if they were like taken in like pitch black. They all seem kind of goth, like gothic feel, like Stranger Things kind of esque. But that's not really what I was looking for, especially when I'm taking photos at the beach. Something that I really wanted to play around with and was spoken a lot about with Phoenix 200 was the halation that you can actually get from this film stock. That was one of the things that intrigued me most within this film, and to play with that, I shot at a lot of like blown out highlights. There are two particular images that I want to talk about here. First one is this photo of the light on the water. That one I knew that I'd get some halation within it. And then there's this second one here, which is full contrasty image. Like the dynamic range needed for this image was quite strong. You can see there's a lot of negative space in the dark areas, but then the light peering through the window, you can see all the halation there. Now these two images, I thought they would turn out perfect for what I was trying to test. However, the halation within these images was just a bit much. Sometimes like the effect is meant to just add to the image. However, these images here are all about that effect. This is not a perfect balance in my opinion for what I was trying to get, or what I think I would try and use in a set of images. The focus turns from what I'm looking at, or what I want the whole scene to be, into there is halation on this image, there's this glow. And I don't know, that sort of detracted from the overall feel and the overall effect of those two images in my opinion. So that was my overall experience with shooting Phoenix 200 for the first time in 35mm. But we still have 120 to talk about, medium format. So how did those photos turn out? Now these photos here, these medium format versions of Phoenix 200, quite varied in the end result. So a lot of them, once again, the contrast is definitely there, but the colors within some of the images on 120 seemed to be a little more pleasant to look at. Scenes were rendered a little bit nicer as well. There was a more flat overlay of colors. There was like a more of a consistency within the colors, and I found that to be a little easier and more pleasant to look at, like I said. These photos were shot at box speed, yet still they seem to be quite contrasty. It seems maybe the dynamic range of this film stock just isn't as strong as those from Kodak. I know that gold would be able to render these shadows and these highlights a little nicer within these images to be a more pleasant mix. However, some of these photos from Phoenix just were a bit destroyed in the shadows, leading to some photos that were just kind of meh. So with these first impressions out of the way, I do believe that Harman is onto something cool here. The idea of having a different film stock that will produce some halation within the highlights is something that I think a lot of film photographers do want. Currently it's just Cinestill that produces these halation effects within these film stocks because of the lack of whatever you call it. The remjet layer was removed, so there's whatever you call it, I don't know, talk about it somewhere technical, not here. Yeah, Cinestill was the only real brand that was putting out film stocks that would give that effect. Now Phoenix 2 has been released and I definitely want to try it out. I'm going to order some of that maybe this week. Try it out, so subscribe to the channel if you're keen to hear my thoughts on Phoenix 2. And I'm really hoping to get a next step out of Phoenix. Will they do Phoenix 3, 4, 5, who knows? Hopefully they do, and hopefully they can nail it, because having an extra brand of color film that we know is reliable will be really, really good for the film photography community. Guys, if you enjoyed, if you have any thoughts on Phoenix 200 yourself, the first version, let me know your experiences down in the comments below. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully this was a bit of an informative video for you, and see you in the next video. Peace.